Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you've ever wanted to know how to combine fatherhood, officiating in NCAA basketball, and helping working professionals invest passively, then guess what? Today's conversation is the one that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. I promise. You know why? Because today's guest not only has lots of experience in officiating in NCAA basketball, he's also a husband and father of 2, and he has a passion for partnering with working professionals that want to invest in commercial real estate, but really don't have the time or the desire to operate it. Today, he acquires commercial real estate and raises capital to fund them. He's the managing director of the Fortes company, and he is also the host of the incredibly amazing podcast, The Passive Investor Show. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Mr. John Fortes. John, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Billy, I'm excited to be here. But before we get started, man, if you're listening to the show, please rate and review the show, man. It means a lot to podcasters, man. And this is a great and phenomenal show. Please rate and review.
Hey, John, I appreciate that. And definitely we like the ratings. We like the reviews. The honest reviews let us know what we can be doing so we continue to improve and make this podcast and attract awesome guests just like John every single day after day after day. So thanks for that, John. Appreciate it, man. Listen, as you know, because we had some great conversations already, everybody kind of gets the same 5 questions. I'm going to give you 2 in the beginning and 3 at the end. And then in between, you and I are going to talk about life, and you're going to add so much value that everybody's going to want to reach out to you when we're all said and done here. But the first things first, help us understand, where is it that you live in the United States?
Well, I'm in a little city called Brockton, Massachusetts, the home of Rocky Marciano and the late great Marvelous Hagler, who recently just passed. It's 25 minutes south of Boston. So it's not too far into the city, and it's perfect. It's where I was born and raised.
All right. Fantastic. So on the right coast of the United States, Brockton, Massachusetts, and appreciate that. And also too, I want to start out with some positivity, John. What's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Oh man, you know what? I'm grateful for my wife. I am really, really grateful for my wife because she allows me to go and put in some long days. I still have a W-2, and I got home pretty late yesterday, and she took care of everything. And that right there it's probably not positive. It's just more grateful.
Yeah, man, it's nice to be able to express that gratitude and show it and express it here with us. So thank you very much for sharing that with me and the entire Going Long family. And you know what, John, I always try to do my best in the beginning to tell a little bit about your story so that everybody kind of understands and wants to continue to listen and continue to watch us on the video version. But could you do us a favor? Could you please share your own backstory in your own words and really maybe highlight some of the major inflection or decision points that you made to get to this part of your journey? And then you and I will kind of take it forward from here and see what things are looking like even going forward.
Yeah, sure. So my parents immigrated to the United States from the islands of Cape Verde. It's off the west coast of Africa. And my mom always said to me in certain conversations is, buy real estate. But I was so young and dumb, I didn't take heed to that till I got older. Fast forward, I am looking at my 401k. I am looking at where I want to be, and I'm entering this world of basketball officiating. I need my availability to be able to go and officiate games at, whenever they're assigned, because you're an independent contractor. So how do I create cash flow? I got some books on stock market. It really wasn't make sense. The funny thing is the stock market makes sense to me now. It's because I built some basic principles from real estate. So I figured out, and I kept coming back to real estate. And then I dove into my first deal, which was a single family out of state in Florida. I told you I live in Massachusetts. The only piece of real estate I own in Massachusetts is my home, my primary residence. Now, invested out of state, I never looked at the asset. I had my father-in-law go do the inspection for me, drive by the home, give me the thumbs up. It was done. Wire sent. We're done. We're rocking and rolling. And that was my first investment property, me and my wife's first. And in the middle of that whole process, I turned to her, I said, this is going to be the last single family we buy. And she's like, why? I mean, you put out on this journey of buying real estate and now you're going to stop here? What's going on? I said, no, economies of scale, more doors under one roof. We need multifamilies. And that's what I specialize in, focus in. I just focus directly on multifamily until I get comfortable with another asset class to start investing personally. And then I can start sourcing that out to investors. But I like to invest in what I know. And then I purchased a 62 unit, which literally about 2 weeks ago, we exited on. That was probably my biggest lesson learner. And if you want to get into that, I'm an open book on that one. Everything that can go wrong went wrong. And at the end of the day, my goal is my tagline is beating inflation 1% at a time. And even on a bad deal, I broke even, and my money basically is worth still the same as it did when I first invested in it. So I broke even because I made a little bit on the sale, but it wasn't enough to basically go out and celebrate, right? So I broke even, and now I'm looking to deploy that into another deal. From there, I did a 41 unit, which we exited on as well. And then that was my first syndication. That was the first deal I actually brought to investors. That was fun. It was just, the whole syndication process is great. Went into another deal, 528 units. And then finally, now I just primarily do funds that invest in multifamily investments. And the reason why is because as I enjoy raising capital, I like partnering with others, but I like to help investors and shield investors with any kind of, I guess you can say, security issues. I didn't find it right to be able to say, hey, I'm going to be the direct line of communication, but go and sign up on their investor portal, sign up on my investor portal, and now you sign up on 2 investor portals for the same deal. And it just felt like if one goes down or one gets breached, you're compromised. So I feel like it's more safety along with less passing of documents when you're invested in a fund for investors. Plus, there's that diversification aspect as well. We could dive into that if you want, but yeah, that's kind of where I am today.
Yeah. So you know what, John? So there's so many different nuggets, right, that I want to ask you, and we're definitely going to ask you about them. And what I already just love, just setting the tone, is that you're being just so transparent, open heart, which is, hey, look, I've been doing these things. I started here. I continue to go along the way, but this isn't like everything's been perfect. Like you've already kind of set up the idea that there's some things we're going to learn, and not because they were done perfectly, but because maybe just things were happening the way that things really happen in real life, right? And so, but before we even get there, of course, this is the Going Long podcast. So we love this whole concept of long distance investing, right? I do it from Europe back in the United States, and you did it from Massachusetts to Florida. And your story sounds really, really similar to mine. But I would love for you to tell us, because most people, when we read the books say kind of buy where you live and be the landlord and do all this kind of stuff. But you made a conscious decision living in Massachusetts to make your first purchase in Florida. So will you please just walk us through the fact that you went kind of contrarian to what everybody believes, and I'm a big fan of that, and most of our, everybody that's here listening is a fan of that as well. But why in the world did you do that, John?
Well, there's a few factors. There's the landlord-friendly laws in other states. That made sense for me. I have friends that own real estate here next to me, and I've heard the stories of, oh my gosh, it took 9 months to get the tenant out. And, now I know, I'd basically be comfortable investing now because I have different tactics and strategies, cash for keys and concepts like that. Mm-hmm. If you're down with, troubled tenants or tenants that are basically, I don't like to paint them as trouble, but, hard to deal with. With that said, it made sense for me to invest out of state. It made sense for me to say, I know I was going to get a property manager anyways. I wasn't really going to manage the asset myself. I was going to pay for that. So I built all that in, and I knew where actually I invested on where I want to be eventually too. So eventually I would like to retire there as well. So I kind of want to be near the assets, but why? I don't know. It's just kind of sound good at the time. But yeah, I invest out of state. For instance, there's the Florida deal, and then the other ones that I mentioned are in Tennessee and Texas. So it's just I understand the nuances. I understand how to vet property managers. I understand how to vet a deal. I'm not scared anyways to do it. It's just something like I could correlate it with, when you're investing in, or when you're going to, when you're going to go in, actually, I really can't correlate it with anything right now. I'm drawing a blank, but it's the fact that when you're comfortable doing something, I was comfortable doing that because I heard of the different things. I said, if I was going to deal with that, I'd rather deal with 1 month of tenant issues or landlord friendly laws, I call it, where I can get them out in 1 month as opposed to 9 months, because that's not quite the business plan I'm looking for.
And so, you know what? And so as you already had your business plan in mind, and you knew this was one of the different areas that can make a really substantial impact, negative impact on your P&L, right? Is in the event that you have someone there that's not playing by the rules for whatever reason, and they're 9 months versus, 9 days or whatever, 2.5, 3 weeks. But the fact that you had the foresight to do that, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people that are saying, yeah, but John, you know that stuff now, but you didn't actually know it when you bought your very first property.
No.
And I guess maybe what I would say, and I would love for you just to confirm this, is maybe you didn't know that stuff, but it sounds like you'd already done some kind of work before, and it was a matter of you had the lifestyle component that you were interested in making sure that was there. So that was not financial, but that is in fact an emotional part of the decision. But quality of life is one of the things that we like to do. You were able to help to minimize the risk in making sure that you weren't in Massachusetts. I own properties in New Jersey, so it's a very, very similar kind of thing. Yeah. So I can definitely relate to that. But since I've learned more, I've actually purchased in other states where they're more, let's call them landlord or business friendly. But the fact that you had that clarity, and then that allowed you to just make the decision to go. And did you know that it was going to be perfect when you made the decision, or did you maybe have some idea that, well, you're not really sure, but you just needed to make a decision and find out?
Absolutely did not expect things to go perfectly. I know for a fact nothing's going to work out that way. The thing is I learned more about out of state investing at the time than I was in state, primarily because I really didn't want to invest in state. Don't ask me why. It was just a decision I kind of made at that time. And I also knew that if I wanted apartments, I knew that eventually I was going to be out of state. Yeah. So might as well get there now. So it's one of those things where I purchased a single family home. That's it. I'm eventually going to, because everything I was reading and listening to at that time is multifamily, economies of scale, this and that, blah, blah, blah. It was like the minute I got on the contract, a wave of information regarding multifamily started coming. So I started researching multifamily, and knowing that, being in a certain area favors your business plan, it really made sense for me to start looking out of state. So I said, if I'm going to go already in multifamily and skip the, 10 mortgages before you can, it's unlimited with commercial, but residential, if I can skip that process and skip those 9 and get to the commercial aspect of it, eventually I was going to get there anyways. So I kind of had the mindset was, if I'm eventually going to get there anyways, I'm going to put in the work of there prior to, doing all the work in between. So I'm just going to focus on what I want first and then keep going. And that was out of state. And learning how to vet a PM, that was very, very much thought of in the process. So I wanted to go through that on a residential level before I started scaling into multifamily as well. So it was kind of worked out favorably for me, even though nothing goes perfect. So another thing is, when we bought the single family home, we went 2 months of carrying it without a tenant. Then we finally found a tenant, and it was below the rent that we were originally going to, request in. So all those things really, really kind of, line up to it not being perfect, but also I did analyze it conservatively to the point where we were still cash flowing, just not as much as I thought we were.
Got you. And so the fact that you went through this, and what I want the Going Long family to understand is you had a plan. You knew where you wanted to go. You took action. You knew that it was not going to be perfect. And as a result, you were getting feedback and pivoting, moving, but continuing to move forward the entire time. I mean, you even, as you said, you were at a point where you were 2 months, you didn't have any income, but you knew that was the plan that you wanted. You stuck to the plan and you continued to move forward. And having that single family residence gave you the experience to understand some of the mechanics, as you knew that eventually you wanted to get to larger scale type of opportunities, which are larger multifamily. And I do want us to stop. I want us to talk about that. But one of the things, and I normally do this at the end, John, but I would love for you to give the website, because one of the things that you mentioned are some of the different properties. And this is one of the things that I love being able to see. I mean, you have a great, the way that you have actually laid out the properties that are in your portfolio, the investment opportunities that you have is fantastic. And so I know it's at the Fortes company, but could you maybe give us the website real quick?
Yeah, it's johnfortes.com. And you can get there in a multitude of ways. You can get there with investwithfortes.com, or you can get there with johnfortes.com. And if you're looking to just learn about the business, there's also the passiveinvestorshow.com, and that all takes you to the website, different elements of the website as well.
All right, fantastic. And everybody, Going Long family, go over there, check it out, johnfortes.com, because like I said, he gives a really clear explanation. You get an idea of the different types of, not the single family, but now you can see where John is and where he's helping people. And so that is one of the things that I would like for us to talk about now, John. And then eventually I want you to talk us through the 62 unit that just, I think you said 62 unit that just went out of your portfolio, exiting that. So being able to go full cycle. But I know that you do also help, and you spend time as a consultant, right, with real estate investment firms, and really being able to help them and get to the fund rollout programs and things like that. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about what you're doing as a consultant and how you're helping others to become involved and more efficient in this real estate game.
Absolutely. Investors are going to find opportunities to invest in alternative investments. That's what we are. We are alternative investments. And they're going to come by way of however they find us, if it's through social media, through podcasts, through YouTube, whatever it is, right? A word of mouth, however they find us, they have to understand that there's a process to this, right? So we want to deliver them the easiest process. And this is what I help firms, startup firms, or even existing firms. I help evaluate what is their onboarding process? What is the experience you're giving to your investors when they come across your website or come across you in general? Is it filling out a form, investor call, and an approval process? It's just those 3 easy steps, but what does that experience entail, right? So you fill out a form, a light form, right? It probably gets you to a more detailed form prior to setting up your meeting. So the form 1 will get you to the meeting. You schedule the meeting because you always want to vet the sponsor. And then the form 2 will come along prior, sometime around when you schedule the meeting and before you have the meeting. And the second form just is a pre-qualify inquiry form. It's literally from the attorneys that tell us we want to properly vet them, right? And then it's more questions regarding your investment, career experience, current net worth and such. It's just a little bit of more detailed information. And the reason why we want to get that out of the way before we have the phone call is because we want to have conversations free flowing just like this. Let's talk about what you're looking for. What's your criteria like? And the reason why is we don't want to be on the phone going down that form with the checklist, because that's not so much of a conversation. Now, once that information is captured, we can go ahead and start building a relationship on the phone call as just a regular general conversation. And then from there, once the conversation's ended, we review the application, we review the forms, and then the approval process happens, which is you're probably invited to the investor portal. And then from there, you can go ahead and see what investment options are on the portal. But you can't get to the portal without that process having done. So that's kind of where I help investment firms with their consulting as far as building their practice and what is the best practice and what does their workflows look like when they get to this area, because we can't be sending out all these emails every time someone comes up. We have a workflow with our CRM. Now we do reach out to you. We are available at, some firms. You are available to the sponsor through text messages, phone calls, emails, and that's direct access. And that's where you want to be at the end of the day after you do go through that process. So yeah, that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah. So, and I listen. So everybody in like, I know some of you are running on the treadmill and some of you are walking and some of you don't have notes to take. And I should have told you, like, you needed to already be sitting down because I knew this was going to be what John was going to be adding so much value doing. But why don't you go back and just listen to what he just said? Because he just gave everyone such an amazing opportunity, whether you are a syndicator or you are someone who is looking to place capital as a passive investor. He just gave you some things to help you through your own due diligence process to help you understand what the experience should be or what you want it to be. And these are different things that you can have and engage in the conversation, right? And so you also, and so I appreciate you sharing that with us, John, and it makes me think about the different members on the team, right? To have somebody that can actually map out those processes, create the standard operating procedures so that you can create, in the word that you used a couple of times, which I love, is what is the right experience? Because what is the experience that you want to create for your investors, and what is the experience that investors want to have with their sponsors? So really having that dual visibility and insight is something that as you're consulting with these firms is really helping them to be even more centered and focused on the people that they want to be able to serve. So that's fantastic. Was there anything else that you wanted to add on that, John?
At the end of the day, I mean, you can either become really good colleagues with your sponsor, or you can either just keep it as business. It's all about where you are, but at that relationship building process has to begin, because the reason why is a lot of firms, they're either raising on a 506B aspect, which means the relationship building process has to be established prior to any offering being sent out. And then there's a 506C offering where you have to be an accredited investor and you're going to be third-party vetted or direct vetting. And what that process looks like is either we're going to give you a form where your CPA is going to, from our attorneys, that your CPA has signed off on saying Billy Kills is an accredited investor, sign sale delivered, here you go. Or you're going to reach out to another platform, pay $60, they pre-qualified you. And then from there, you can send that document, which is probably good for about 6 months to a year, to any other sponsor saying, hey, I've already been pre-qualified and now here it is. So there's different processes and different reasons on why we do what we do.
Yeah, and I love that you broke that down, and also people can check that out, the difference between the 506B, 506C, and which would be the most appropriate. And also, I guess it depends on what the sponsor is wanting to do and the individuals or the people that they want to be able to attract. So one of the things that you also mentioned in the beginning, and I'm just curious like how this plays out, because you mentioned before you are a syndicator and operator, and you also are an official for the NCAA. And for those of us who don't, those of the people that are maybe outside of the United States and don't know, the National Collegiate Association, and that's really like the division. Can I say Division I sports, Division I basketball? Is that fair?
Yeah. I'm currently in Division III, but I'm working my way to get to Division II and Division I. Yes, perfect. Yes. So it's all under the same umbrella.
It's all in the same umbrella, right? So and people talk about the different universities and stuff like that, but like that's a really high pressure kind of environment that you have opted to be in. And I'm always curious, like, because in that type of environment, you have to make split second decisions that really can provoke a lot of emotion in people, right? Depending on what things happen and when they are. But what are some of the things that profession has really helped you in terms of the way that you're able to engage with your investors and become even more proficient syndicator and operator?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. It's really allowed me to be a better communicator. And the reason why is I'm going to be 50% right and 50% wrong with every call, no matter where I am. Mm-hmm. And if a coach has an objection to something, I have to provide the book explanation for it, the rules. What did I see? Why I called it? It was just, even if I'm wrong, I admit that I'm wrong. So we're human. We get things right. We get things wrong. For the most part, we get things right. And that's where we want to live. And when you're really upfront and honest with things, people are much, more, give you more, I guess, leeway than they do if you're kind of BSing your way through it. So I don't BS. I just give it direct and say, look, this is what I saw. This is what happened. I'm wrong. I'm like that with my investors if I'm wrong. And that's what it's taught me. It's taught me to be a great communicator where, we're making these split decisions on, just off of, time, score, distance, everything that we're looking at right there. And we're putting it all together and then making a call. And your fans might not like it. You might not like it. But there's a reason why we're there. We're part of the game, but we're not trying to become the game. We're just officiating it.
So, wow, just a lot there. Just the fact that that's in the forefront of your mind is 50% of the time you're right, 50% of the time you're wrong. But the most important thing is based on rules, right? And so being able to put all of those different elements where you are in the game, what just happened, and be able to have to explain that at a split second, that is definitely something that has given you this insight to also now be able to translate that with your investors and being able to recognize that we're all human. Every single person goes out every single day to do the best of our ability, you to do the best of your ability, everyone that's watching and listening to us, the exact same thing. And to be able to have that humbleness, that humility, that transparency, I'm sure is something that continues to be one of the main reasons why you continue to be so successful and also to be able to attract the people that you know that you can best serve. So I appreciate you sharing that with us as well. And I do kind of want to get back to this deal because this is a great reason to celebrate, right? To be able to go full cycle through a deal, which basically for those of us, because maybe we haven't talked about it that much here on the Going Long podcast, but when you are able to bring an asset into your portfolio, and then once that asset exits your portfolio, then you've sold the asset and it's moved on to the next thing. So maybe you could, because it sounded like you had a lot of learning opportunities through that, and so maybe you could talk to us about that 62 unit, some of the different lessons you learned, and just kind of what happened along the way.
Sure. Quick bullet points is, first I want to say is any type of bad experience going forward, if you know you're going to still be in that profession, is a win for you. Because you're going to know what to avoid. And one thing is we dealt with, for instance, you're going into the deal. It was a value add deal. It was really a heavy value add deal, but we didn't process it as that, being new to the industry. We just knew it was a value add deal. We got it for a great price. We went in. Here's the things that you hear, and you're like, oh man, this is great. Everything's month to month. Tenants are month to month. Oh, that's great. It's a value add deal. Oh, that's great. And you got room to grow, like really a lot of room to grow. Oh, that's great. All right. What do I mean by that? Here it is. Month to month deal, month to month leases. That's good when you go in and then you stagger each building according to the renovations. If you keep everyone on a month to month as what we did, we left everyone month to month. We emptied out building 1. Boom. Everybody saw the writing on the wall. Gone. Had we went to building 2 and 3, say, hey, we're going to, sign you guys to a 6-month lease, and then building 3, 9-month lease, that gives us some runway where now those tenants are going to, break us even, and we don't have to do, we could just focus on the renovations and turns. Had we done that, we'd still own the asset. From there, getting construction crews that are adequate, right? So now we know how to vet construction crews. We had one that didn't have the manpower, and they were going through things very slow. Now, mind you, tenants are empty. 4 capital calls later through our JV partners. This was not a syndicated deal. This was just, me and a couple friends. Mm-hmm. We're now carrying the bill on this for like the last 3 years. With that said, everybody said you can't go from bridge loan to bridge loan. We did enough work into the asset where the property appreciated on its own, and we were renovating a few. I mean, we were leasing up a few of the assets. I mean, of the tenants, of the units. I'm sorry, we had a few tenants in there. Now we were making cash flow to pay some bills, but not everything. And then from there, we were able to go into another bridge loan. So we exhausted our 2 extensions on our previous loan, and we had to move into another loan. And we were finally able to do that. We did that. Everybody said you couldn't do it. And I'm very proud of that accomplishment. It was just a lot of phone calls. From there,
Hey, John, sorry, just before you go forward, because this is really, really valuable. And if you're not like seated already in writing this kind of stuff down, like John is sharing some extremely valuable information for you. What he just shared on the lease ups and on the buildings was in the staggered way was phenomenal. Because this is, once again, as a passive investor, these are the types of questions that you can ask your sponsor, your operator. And as someone who is moving or becoming a sponsor, you can ask your operator. Or if you're doing sponsor and operator, these are different things that John is sharing with you that you can definitely learn from his experience. But you mentioned one word, and I think sometimes people may not understand what it is before you go forward in the story, is a bridge loan. So could you maybe just explain in layman's terms what a bridge loan is for people and why it's a tool that you would use?
Absolutely. Consider it like a hard money loan from a private investor. It's just a higher interest rate with a shorter balloon date, right? So it was a 1 year, 9.99% interest loan with 2 extensions, 2 6-month extensions. Consider that basically a bridge loan. And then we went from our 2-year loan when we were done into another 1-year loan. And then we finally exited. Okay. We just needed more runway to be able to either finish what we were going to do, what we started, or look for the exit. Nothing's wrong with it, just having multiple exits as well. And that's basically what the bridge loan is. Okay. And one thing I did want to get back to, though, is I think this is important as well. If you're going to renovate, for instance, you got 3 roofs you need to do on 3 different, basically three buildings, 3 roofs, hire 2 contractors. One gets one gets the other. Whoever does the best, cleanest job doesn't have to come under budget, but that's a plus, gets the 3rd. Competition is great for everything. Wow.
Man, if you all are literally, if you're not writing this down, like you got to just listen and watch this again, because John's giving you so many different pieces of insight. And just once again, 2 things happen there. Number one, competition is good. And you also have no single point of failure, especially when you know that you have multiple roofs that you need to get done. And that is, this is really, really, really useful and very, very helpful. And it gets
the work done faster.
Yeah, it does. You have less late draws and stuff like that. So, one of the other things, John, I wanted to also ask you, right? Because there's a lot of really busy professionals. We tend to attract here lots of high paid professionals that are in the sales and the pharma, as well as medical industry here. And so there are some people like me that are, you're working your day job and you're syndicating capital. But you've kind of taken it to another level because you have a day job and you have a syndication company and you're also operating. So can you help us understand, like, when you look at being able to combine that operator and syndicator role, kind of what that looks like for people and also how you're able to be able to do that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of, meeting people like you, meeting people that are actually, putting the deals together. How could I help them? How could I be a resource? How could I support them? And then the people that I'm coming across that are looking for investments, I personally build a relationship with the sponsor that takes a year for me prior to partnering in the deal. And it's because I want to make sure that we mesh. Because Billy, you've probably been to a couple real estate conferences and you're like, hey, Billy, let's do a deal together. We got to do a deal together. And, that's all great when we first meet.
Right.
Right. But at the same time, if I go missing for like 6 months and I come back to you and put a deal in your lap, I mean, you're most likely going to be like, so how's the family? Right. So it's not like going to be that easy. So I like to build off of that. We don't have to be best friends, but we have to be enough, where I can be comfortable with you. And maybe I reviewed your underwriting on your last 2 deals, and I like the way you underwrite your assets. I like the way you're managing. I like what I'm seeing, how you're displaying on your newsletters. I want to be under the hood with all of that. Well, not too much under the hood. I want to be like a passive investor in your deals. And if I'm requesting something, I want to see if you're going to ask, you're going to send it over, or you got something to hide. So I want to be a part of all of that. So any sponsor should be giving you underwriting, should be giving you anything basically you're asking on, because you're part of the business as well. So you're going to be an LP in a deal, and you want to make sure you understand. So when you're asking these questions, they're going to send it. I ask for underwriting and they send it over. It's not a out of the line question. No, you can't see that. No, you can see it. They'll send it to you. They'll send you a screen cap of something or whatever. That's okay. They'll send you the T12. They'll send you the offering memorandum. That's okay. The OM, and you can vet it yourself. I know people that are actually passive investors that want to underwrite every deal that they're going in. And that's okay. It makes them feel safe. It makes them feel guarded, and allows them to feel some sort of control of their capital prior to placing into a deal, that once they put it into a deal, now the general partners are in control of the capital, and it's an illiquid deal. So you know how it is for the next 3 to 5 years from that prior to a capital event.
Yeah, exactly. And I appreciate you breaking it down that way. And when someone, especially when they're looking to invest passively, they want to be able to do their own underwriting, or they want to be able to do their own underwriting and then contrast that with you and see kind of what things are happening. If you're going to ask someone to stroke $100,000, $200,000 check or wire transfer or whatever the case may be, well, yeah, they're within their right to be able to do that and do that up front. And so the more transparent you can be, then the better it is for both parties. Because as you mentioned before, and I'm a big believer in this as well, John, it's a two-way street. It's about me making sure that it's the right opportunity and the right sponsor. And also the sponsor wants to make sure that you're the right limited partner if you're going to be investing, because it's a longer term relationship. This is not jumping in and jumping out of the stock market. You said it yourself. It's illiquid. And so this is having that relationship part and a clear understanding, and allowing people to get what they need so that they can make the best decision for themselves. This is what it's all about. So.
Absolutely. And when you're doing that, you're going to create a preferred sponsor list. I like Billy. He's a good guy. I like talking to him. I like everything about him, everything he's sent me. I checked it out myself. Great. And you already basically pre-vetted Billy, and you could put him on your preferred sponsor list. That's what I do. I put people on my preferred sponsors list. And anybody that I meet, it goes on to the pre-qualifying list, and they're going through that same vetting process where I'm not investing with them or partnering with them for at least a year.
Yeah. Rinse and repeat, man. Rinse and repeat. But, before we get into the going long final three, because eventually we have to get to the going long final three, I do want you to just talk about, because I mentioned before, the Passive Investor Show. I need you to tell us about it. I want the Going Long family to know what it is that you're talking about, what's going on over your podcast, how they can learn more, and really what I think the name says it all, but help us understand really what's the focus there.
Nah, thank you for the opportunity again. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on. It's if you really listen, you'll notice that we do one thing. We talk about the experience for the passive investor when you're investing with, Billy Kills' firm. But we never talk about the real estate, because there's other podcasts, I'm sure, that Billy's been on and talked about deals. But we're going to talk about what does that process look like when an investor's flowing through from onboarding process to communications to exit. That's the experience I wanted to show investors. And with that, I get to, kind of selfishly find out what you're doing in your business that maybe I'm not doing, that maybe I can incorporate or maybe incorporate later. It's all about the investor experience, like I said at the beginning of the show. And that's what I wanted to give every listener that's looking to be a passive investor. Say, hey, I want to know what to expect when I'm investing with any company. What's the right form of communication I'm supposed to get? How do I vet a sponsor? How do I, what does the capital call look like? What does the offering period look like? What does the PPM, the scary old PPM look like? I have quick hitter shows that even captured that, where we talk about anything from the experience of all those that I've mentioned and detailing what the PPM is all about. I don't get in full detail. I give 30,000 foot overviews on everything. So the podcast is anywhere from 3 minutes to 30 minutes.
Awesome. So, and once again, being able to come back and look at that, whether it's 3 minutes or 30 minutes, the fact of the matter is really focused on what is the experience of the passive investor? How can a passive investor learn through other people's experiences, other sponsors, other passive investors, and really being able to understand just what that whole experience is, so that at the end of the day, everybody can know what to expect when they go in, what questions to ask. And that helps people be much more informed, educated. And when you have much more education and you feel much more comfortable and confident, that is really going to be one of the things that will spur you on to action, which is great. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And like I said, everybody needs to go check him out, to go listen to John over at the Passive Investor Show, which we're also going to include links here in the show notes. But one of the things is, John, we've like one of the things, like I said, everybody, we always have to get to the going long final three. But the thing is, I never ask the going long final three unless you tell me that you're ready. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
You were born ready, man. You were born ready. So here we go. So listen, we started with you over in the U.S. in Brockton, Mass. And so now I'd like to bring it back to my side of the pond, if you don't mind, my adopted side of the pond here in Europe. So help us understand, what's your favorite European city, either that you have visited or still on your bucket list to visit?
Bucket list. I haven't been to Europe yet. Bucket list. It's Italy. My wife is part Italian, and we got to make it out there.
Oh man, this is a wonderful place, and I won't tell you one of my favorite places, but yes, so we'll take Italy, and because
I'm gonna hit you up.
Because if I say one place and the other people are gonna get upset, but definitely let me know before you come over here, man. Let me know. So, so with that, like, here's the other thing. That question number 2 or number 4, but second of the going long final 3 is really about successful people. One of the things that I've always seen around successful people is that, and you, John, you're a very successful person, is that the thing with successful people is that successful people, one of the main reasons that they're successful is because they only make one mistake in their life. And the fact of the matter that they only make one, every week I say this and I get it wrong every time. I think I just get all nervous, or maybe it's by design. I don't know. But anyway, so here we go. So the reality is, the thing that people that are successful do differently, because we all make mistakes. It's like you said earlier, every single person makes mistakes, right? And so what I've always recognized is that those people that tend to have and achieve the most success are the ones that do something differently. And it's that take a learning away from each and every one of those learning experiences, mistakes, however you want to call it. So what is like one learning experience or mistake that you've had in your life that you would like to take what's that lesson that you learned that you would pay forward to the Going Long family today?
Man, not learning about investing sooner. I waited way too long to do it. And I never like to feel like I'm behind the 8 ball, but it was kind of like that feeling when I first started getting started. So I guess I would, if I had to talk to my younger self, start learning about investing, start learning about how it makes sense to you, and find a way to, for me to learn, I have to see it and go through it. So it's really hard. Now I can read a book and implement. But when I was younger, it was really hard for me to read and implement. I'd rather see, do, and go through all of that and then implement. So now I network and reach out to a lot of people to help me curve that scaling.
Okay. So being able to network and reach out to other people and to accelerate the learning.
And learn about investing.
And learn about investing.
At a younger age,
Yeah. And what really investing means, because I come from a family where if you saved money, that was investing.
Yeah.
And that's the first
the
step.
millennials right now are just full-fledged learning. It's remarkable. It's refreshing to see it. It's kind of crazy because I'm like, all right, I feel like my kids are going to eventually stumble upon that if I don't teach them, which is my goal to teach them. But if I didn't, they're going to do it on their own because it's so out there now. It's so mainstream now. Yeah, definitely.
So here's the last question, the Going Long Final 3, which is really, because you talked about books, and it's really about how we feed our minds with knowledge. So what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
One book that I recently read, and I'm going to add it to probably every quarter, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It was phenomenal. It helps me understand my habits and where I need to share it up. So yeah, all right. It was amazing.
Perfect. Atomic Habits. We're going to add it. And I guess I can't believe how quickly these conversations go by, man. It's just amazing. So it's one of these things that just flies by. And I'm thinking when you shared from the very beginning, your mom and Cape Verde and being able to share her experience and talking about real estate, and you recognize you want to do that. And then you get to a point in your life where you're thinking, well, look, even though I live in Massachusetts, I want to buy my first property in Florida. You started going along from the very beginning. You knew that was a first step that was going to take you into multifamily, which is going to be something that was going to allow you to scale and then be able to scale on a way that made sense for you, using a lot of your skill set. At the same time, there's this whole underlying core with you, which is really about experience. Right. And whether you're making split-second decisions based on the rules that you see and the contact and the information when you're in the NCAA, or you're dealing and working with your ecosystem, your teams, and or your investors, it's really about understanding what is the experience that you are providing each and every time. Right. And you even talk about that in the Passive Investor Show, is this focus on experience. And so all these things, the experience that you have, what you've shared with us today, we've all taken copious notes. And I know so many people, although we talked about it in the beginning, they're like, can you remind me once again, John, like what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team? So help us understand what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team for the Going Long family.
Thank you for having me on. Please, again, if you are listening to the show, big fan of the show, man, rate and review the show on iTunes. It's remarkable. You can find me at johnfortes.com, and I'm all over social media as well. I just don't do a lot of social media. It just takes me away from doing everything that I need to do. So I can get sucked down to a rabbit hole just like everybody else. That's why Atomic Habits is good. But yeah, johnfortes.com, and I got the Passive Investor Show podcast as well. But I appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, listen, John, thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart, man. I appreciate you investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family today, man. Thank you.
Be well and God bless, man.
All right. Likewise. And listen, John, if you give me just a second, I just want to say a couple things to the Going Long family really quickly just to wrap things up. So look, Going Long family, once again, John Fortes just left so much value. I mean, it was just amazing. And I'm like, really, you should have been taking so many notes. And if you didn't, go back, listen again, watch again. And, also take today's episode, share it with 2 or 3 other people, because you have the opportunity to impact so many lives positively with the words that John just shared with us. And somebody needs to hear what his story is, and then share that with them and be that person that really makes the positive impact. At the same time, what John mentioned before, like one of the things I'd also love for you to do is just take a couple seconds and leave an honest review of what you think about the show, what you think about today's conversation, what you liked, what you'd like to hear again in the future, because maybe that's one of the ways we can get John to come back and continue to deliver value. Would love to have that. And so, like I said, just leave us an honest review, take a couple seconds. And lastly, listen, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next conversation. And until then, go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.